So let's move on to the trial of Brent Hankison. So nearly 2 years after the botched raid that killed Breonna Taylor, the only officer facing criminal charges is standing trial. So the former officer Brent Hankison is charged with wanton endangerment for shooting through Taylor's apartment into the neighbor's home. If you remember when this happened, everyone was frankly shocked that the only person charged wasn't charged for killing Breonna Taylor, but for endangering someone in the following apartment. So during opening statements, prosecutors argued that Taylor should still be here despite the case not being focused on her death. However, the defense argues that all Hankison's actions during the raid were justified. Let's hear some of the opening statements.
This is not a case to decide who is responsible for the death of Breonna Taylor. Breonna Taylor should not have died that night. The city of Louisville, in a civil matter which I spoke about yesterday, paid millions of dollars to Breonna Taylor's family. But the money did not bring her back. Nothing will. This is not a case about the search warrant for Breonna Taylor's apartment, other than you will hear it was a valid search warrant signed by a judge.
I think after you've heard all the evidence, rather than go down the path that Ms. Whaley wants you to go down and find him guilty of wanton endangerment 3 times over, you're going to go down the path that we suggest you go down and find that he was justified. His actions were reasonable and justified given the chaotic situation he was in. And we're going to hear from a number of officers, I believe, who are firearms instructors and range instructors, who are going to say that there are certain rules that you have to follow when you're discharging a weapon, whether you're a police officer or just a citizen who's out shooting. There are certain basic rules. We aren't going to dispute any of that. But the officers go through training, and I'll tell you one thing that none of these people are going to say is that they are trained under circumstances such as existed on March 13th, 2020 in Breonna Taylor's apartment.
Now, because of much of the pretrial publicity, Hankison's jury was selected from a larger than normal jury pool. 10 men and 5 women will hear the evidence and decide Hankison's fate. The 3 counts of wanton endangerment are low-level felonies, punishable by only up to a maximum of 5 years in prison. No one involved in the raid has been directly charged with Breonna Taylor's death, but this is the only opportunity for anyone to be punished at all as a result of the quote-unquote botched raid. I'm going to go to you first, Scott. What's your impression of this case, and what should people be looking for as this goes to trial?
Well, I think it's a really tough case for the prosecution. The jury's got to understand that Hankison is not charged with felony murder or even manslaughter. He's charged with wanton endangerment. And he was the one of 3 officers that fired shots into the apartment building. What the jury's going to struggle with is, well, if he's one of 3, why weren't the other 2 charged with wanton endangerment or some other felony that you're going to argue that Hankison was responsible for Breonna Taylor's death, but he's not charged with manslaughter or murder, and the other 2 officers simply are not there. You're going to have to weave that story to convince the jury that raising the question of why am I here is a real issue. Of course, Hankison's defense is going to be, it was crazy that night. It was a raid. There were shots fired. I was firing shots to protect my fellow police officers. My bullet didn't kill Breonna Taylor, if you will. My bullet didn't injure her boyfriend. And so why am I here? Plus, I followed my police training. You heard that in the opening statement. And so the high bar of being found guilty beyond a reasonable doubt is going to be a real challenge here. I think Hankison should be held responsible, but proving justice or getting justice in this case is going to be just as hard as the Kentucky AG has found to be able to charge these two other officers. We'll have to sit tight and watch and see. The government's got to put on a perfect case and be perfect in their performance to obtain these low-level felony convictions.
And so, Kelly, what's your take on even it being such low-level felonies? Because at the end of the day, nobody's actually being charged with killing Breonna Taylor. It's the kind of the ancillary issues that are really being brought to trial. What does it say about our criminal justice system where all you can get is the low-level felonies, and even those convictions look like they're going to be an uphill battle?
I think this is one of the rare cases where it's not necessarily a result of a corrupt justice system so much as it is a corrupt attorney general by way of Daniel Cameron, because he had the power to indict everyone involved in that incident and charge them with murder. And there was plenty of evidence there that he chose not to show the grand jury. And by way of them not having that information, they made the decision that they made and not charge anyone for the death of Breonna Taylor. And what angers me and so many others, I'm sure, infuriating really, is that a wall is getting more justice than a Black woman in this case. Because like you said, Breonna Taylor's killers, that's not what they're on trial for. They're not on trial for her death. They're on trial because they were reckless and shot a wall, and that endangered a neighbor. That's what they're talking about here. They are saying that a bullet went into a wall and that could have killed somebody, as opposed to the bullet that went into Breonna Taylor and killed her. So this entire case really is at the fault of Daniel Cameron, not necessarily the justice system. The justice system itself actually could have given Breonna Taylor's family justice in this case, and the AG chose not to go that route. So here we are.
Lauren, we've seen this continuously when it comes to the deaths of African-American women, particularly in the hands of law enforcement and the refusal to even investigate that often. What should be done from a public policy standpoint to start protecting the lives of African-American women? Because we've seen a lot of movement around protecting Black men. How can we build the movement stronger around protecting Black women?
Well, actually, if you look at the statistics, it's Black men who are the victims of police violence historically and present day. This is not to take anything away from Breonna Taylor's situation. She should not be dead. This is an outrageous incident. She had nothing to do with anything and got shot, you know. And as somebody who is the daughter of a law enforcement officer and the girlfriend of a law enforcement officer, I am sort of generally aware of the fact that when you unholster your gun, you're supposed to know exactly what you are about to do with that gun. And this idea that we're spraying bullets in the room and Breonna Taylor, an innocent party, gets killed is outrageous. I mean, it's absolutely outrageous. But to get back to what Scott said, and realizing that it's unpopular to say, but in fact, our law enforcement does in fact have a license to kill, unfortunately. They do. And to get back to what Scott said, they're going to have to prove negligence, and they're going to have to prove a violation of police procedure in this incident. That's going to be really difficult to do, given that the witness that they killed, of course, during this ridiculous incident, Breonna Taylor, one of the witnesses, is not here to say anything. And that's why these cities now have become accustomed to giving out money, and then no individual person ever has to pay a price for somebody's death and somebody's life ending. I mean, it's ridiculous, but I'm not sure how they're going to prove that this officer violated police procedure. And I'm not sure how they're going to prove that he was negligent. I think it's going to be extremely difficult to do that, even given the fact that Breonna Taylor should be here with us today and should not be dead. Of course she shouldn't be. Of course, we all are aware of the fact that the no-knock warrant laws did change in that jurisdiction as a result of this, but it shouldn't have taken that. This shouldn't have happened. It's like a mere lock. It's the same ridiculous thing. The wrong person is shot. They're in the wrong place. It's just that, to me, is a bigger issue. Like, who signed the warrant for this? How did they end up, in the wrong place, shooting the wrong person? But again, I do think it's a hard case to make.
Yeah,
All right.
Robert, if I may real quick, real quick, the other thing the jury's going to struggle with is where are the other two police officers? They're trying to tie this shooting and wanton endangerment to Breonna Taylor. okay, they're going to have to thread that needle for the jury to make them understand this. But as they charge Hankison, the jury's going to struggle with, well, wait a minute. Where are the other two officers?
Mm-hmm.
The one who shot Breonna Taylor. Why am I prosecuting and why am I determining the fate of Hankison when I ought to be determining the fate of all three police officers because of the publicity we've seen and because of what really happened that night? It was a cluster F, if you will, and made worse by the Attorney General, who really mischarged and did a poor job of presenting all the facts and witnesses to the grand jury. And so I think he's made it hard. The AG for Kentucky made it harder to get a conviction versus easier to get a conviction for this one police officer, Hankison.
I rolled my uncle's video in just one moment.
Time to be smart.
Roland Martin's doing this every day.
Oh, no punching!
Thank you, Roland Martin, for always giving voice to the issues.
Look for Roland Martin in the whirlwind, to quote Marcus Garvey again.
The video looks phenomenal, so I'm really excited to see it on my big screen.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
I got to defer to the brilliance of Dr. Carr and to the brilliance of the Black Star Network.
I am rolling with Roland all the way.
Honored to be on a show that you own. A black man owns the show.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now. Roland was amazing on there.
Stay black. I love y'all.
I can't commend you enough about this platform that you've created for us to be able to share who we are, what we're doing in the world, and the impact that we're having.
Let's be smart. Bring your eyeballs home.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared. You dig?